Hello everybody, today I'm going to be in conversation with Dr. Brian McDonogh. He's had an amazing journey in his life and I hope we're going to be able to drill down in that and find out a little bit about it. As you know, I produced my linseed, but when I first started to do that, and in my first leaflet I spoke about Hippocrates, who wanted food to be your medicine and medicine to be your food. So I think that's the first thing I was going to say to you, Brian. Do you think we're nearly there yet?
Well, the tragedy of it really is that Hippocrates would be struck off the medical register today.
Well, yes.
And because what he was trying to teach us is what the word doctor actually means. The word doctor means teacher. And Hippocrates was a brilliant teacher, hence a brilliant doctor. But you cannot be a good teacher unless you've been a good student. So what he did was he drew from all the knowledge of what plants would make you better if you had certain illnesses. So we know, not only from Holy Scripture, but also from thousands and thousands of years' experience in places like India and Sri Lanka, where we have Ayurvedic medicines. And in China, where they have all sorts of things they've had for thousands of years.
That's right.
So Hippocrates at the time was restricted to the knowledge of whatever sphere of influence he could tap into, but there were other spheres of influence at the time as well. So imagine if Hippocrates lived in an era like we are now, where he could just pick up the phone or Skype someone in China and see what they're doing, or go and visit them with an aeroplane. It would have been so much more, the information would have been more bountiful. So you're quite right, he did say that. Let food be thy medicine. But what interests me is that he used the word food. We don't use that word anymore. We have to specify this kind of fat, not that one. And organic versus inorganic. Because then food was just food.
Yeah.
It wasn't spoiled.
And they've even started talking about functional food. So presumably Hippocrates would have thought, all my food is functional.
Exactly. You see, he was so privileged not to live in a world that had been poisoned, both in the way we think about food and what we put in our mouth. And then he said, let food be thy medicine be thy food. That is a brave statement for a doctor to make, because in his day there was alchemy. There were people dabbling with all sorts of chemicals. I think for myself, my understanding of where we went wrong is exactly the same mistake that one reads about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve's mistake was they wanted to be God.
Right.
That is how things happened. Eat of this fruit and you will be all knowledgeable. You will be like God. Oh, and don't we all want to be like God? Don't you see that happening in doctors today? Where doctors are trying to behave like God by doing all sorts of weird things with stem cells, embryonic stem cells, immoral things to some extent. And I just feel that Hippocrates had it easy. He didn't have all the rules and regulations.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, I was reading the obituaries the other day.
Yeah.
Professor David Barker died. And he spent his whole life looking at pregnancy and the influence of nutrition
Yeah.
on the unborn child.
I think I know where you're going with this
Well,
one.
and then there was Sir Richard Dole,
Yeah.
and he said, cancer is caused by food, and you had Professor Geoffrey Rose, heart disease, it's almost entirely due to the Western diet.
Yeah.
So these are people, maybe similar to Hippocrates, with great standing, but nobody's listened to them. And we still buy food that kills us.
Yeah.
What's your observations about that? The people way up, maybe they're in the stratosphere or something, but they know that something's going wrong, and they try to tell people, but the message doesn't get through.
I think there are two important comments I would like to make. One is about omega-3 there in pregnancy, and the other is that I must confess that I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist.
There's a big club going on then, I think.
I think I'm in a very long line of people that are starting to think that way. You know that in the NHS, for example, people are starting to say, this establishment exists for the sake of the establishment, not for the patient.
Well, it can't go on like it is. We have to do something. We have to recognise that some change is needed.
And I'd like to talk about that later. But to come back to the other point about omega-3 in pregnancy, I don't know if your listeners know this, but when you were at school and you did scientific experiments and they said, okay, you have a thing called a semi-permeable membrane, and on one side of it you put something with a high concentration, say sugar water, and on the other side you have no sugar, just water. And very slowly, from the high concentration to the low concentration, the sugar will move through the semi-permeable membrane until both sides have the same concentration of sugar. And that's how nutrients pass from the mother to the baby. With one exception. Omega-3 will move against a concentration gradient. That means it will go from a low concentration to a higher concentration if it's needed by the baby. So if the baby's got more omega-3 than the mother is able to provide in her blood, whatever the mother has, the baby will take. So omega-3 is absolutely vital in pregnancy, and it's the only nutrient that will move against the concentration gradient, which means it is of utmost importance.
So nature is depleting the mother.
And that's why so many mothers who do not see that they have enough omega-3 during pregnancy, their brain shrinks, and they get what you call the maternity gagas or maternity blues as well, because the brain doesn't function as well. Omega-3 is not so much for the structure of the brain as for the function of the brain. And if you don't have enough omega-3, the function of the brain diminishes. And that's why these mothers develop various illnesses after pregnancy. Yes. So I hope I'm not going on too much about this, but basically
so this is the passing of messages, I think, the communication.
Yeah, it's just so important, and we need to be perceptive of what nature is doing, because we are not God.
No.
We must stop behaving like God and be more observant and learn, because the better we learn, the better we will teach.
Yeah, I mean, there are people looking at it. In fact, I met a nutritional doctor a few weeks ago, and I was giving him my talk, and afterwards he said, do you know, I test all my patients for the balance between omega-3 and 6 in the body, and I've only tested one woman that had the right balance.
Yeah.
And that's quite amazing. So
But that's because there's so much omega-6 being pumped into animals and pumped into foods that are in your average refrigerator.
Yeah.
And people are having less and less omega-3. So you may have spoken to that doctor about the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. The reason that ratio is so important is because omega-6 in excess, although it's a polyunsaturated fatty acid, becomes inflammatory. So in low doses it is anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. So what's happened is people have, for several generations have been told saturated fat is harmful for you, don't have butter, have all these polyunsaturated or monounsaturated fats, totally ignoring the fact that you do need to think about what sort of oils they are and what's the proportions of the omega-3.
It's the proportion that's important.
It's the proportion.
So, unfortunately, omega-3 is not found in a lot of... there's not a great variety.
No.
So that's why I was so excited to come to your farm to see, because linseed is a main source of omega-3.
Yes.
There are so many sources of omega-6, but omega-3 you're looking at what the ocean provides, and you're looking at the few plants that provide.
Purslane is one, which is quite in Italy and around the Mediterranean areas. So a lot of the Mediterranean people have purslane in their salads.
That's right.
We're all told, aren't we, the Mediterranean people are healthier because of olive oil, which I don't think is the truth, because olive oil is mainly omega-9, but probably what they're not getting is a lot of this extra omega-6 with the sunflowers and so on.
I absolutely agree. You see, olive oil is not an essential fatty acid.
No.
Your body can make omega-9. Your body cannot make omega-3. That's why it's called an essential fatty acid. It means you've got to consume it.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that easy. It's more complicated, and I'll try and talk you through some of those complications in a way that you can understand. The plant, whether it be the linseed or the phytoplankton in the sea, the plant provides a short chain omega-3 essential fatty acid, polyunsaturated. Animals like us, including fish, have to lengthen that chain to make it a long chain polyunsaturated fatty acid.
There are other things that surely happen during this elongation process, which maybe we don't yet understand.
Yeah, we know that your body has the enzymes to do it, but those enzymes are dependent on cofactors and enzyme. You need the enzyme and you need the cofactors. And if you don't have those cofactors, you don't do the conversion. And that's another way that we can actually consume enough intake of omega-3, but end up with too little of the long chain version. And there are particular illnesses where those enzymes don't work properly. The main one is hyperactive children with ADHD, and people with cancer and asthma and a whole range of other illnesses. They are poor, we call them poor converters. But we have to think of all the benefits of omega-3. We touched on brain function, but that's just one major reason we need them. We need them for our eyes to function properly. You know that your joints need omega-3 as anti-inflammatories. That anti-inflammatory is different. Omega-3 is different to omega-6 in that it doesn't matter how much omega-3 you take. It will always and only be anti-inflammatory. We mentioned omega-6 is different. Small amounts of omega-6 are anti-inflammatory, but go above that and you end up with too much arachidonic acid, which is the source of all inflammation, so it becomes inflammatory. Yeah. And today we're looking at chronic illnesses. And you say, right, how many of these chronic illnesses involve inflammation? Oh my goodness me.
90%, is it? Or more?
Most of them are inflammatory illnesses, including cancer. Yeah. inflammatory illness. All right, cancer is more complicated. You have to look at other issues like pH and so on. So can you see how vitally important your product is? I wonder if you actually grasp the importance of your linseed oil product in its ability, purely as it's in its anti-inflammatory capacity, to help people with chronic inflammatory illnesses. Just think of the arthritics alone. Not to have to attend a doctor's surgery. And now we can come back to your other question about what's gone wrong with the system. Because now we can understand. You have a population who've been hoodwinked into eating the wrong kinds of food, full of the wrong kind of polyunsaturates called omega-6. And on top of it, we're eating a lot of trans fatty acids, which is a type of hydrogenated oils, which are really bad for us.
I think there's less of that now. They have made some strides on that, but they've probably...
under duress, don't you think?
Yeah,
pressure.
Under duress, yeah.
And pressure. It's the same. Why are they taking artificial colours out of sweets? If we weren't complaining about it, they would still be doing it. Yeah?
That's right.
You can only affect change in big business when you affect the pocket, their income.
Yes, that's why people are so powerful. If we can have the opportunity to give people some information so they can make up their minds.
But the information must be correct and it must be accurate.
Yes.
So, what went wrong with the NHS system? Well, there are a number of things that went wrong. Two major ones is the doctors have started to not be teachers. They are telling people what to do. They're not teaching them how to be their own doctor. How to be your own doctor. What is causing your problem? This is causing your problem. How are we going to manage it? We're going to treat that cause. Modern medicine stops looking for the cause and immediately, without second thought, picks up a pen. And inside that pen is this magical thing called a prescription.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about how that became reinforced. But the modern doctor isn't thinking cause. He's thinking, what can I give this person to get rid of that symptom?
Well, that's what the person comes there for, isn't it, as well? So it's, I find it
Fair enough.
I find it hard to blame them entirely. But something has happened to bring those two things together. I as a patient,
it's called a culture. It's called a prescription culture. Now, let me tell you something else that's interesting about how the prescription culture came to be so powerful. And it is through my personal observation. After 30 years of being a doctor, we used to have consultations with patients that were 20 minutes long. Yeah? Then we found, well, actually more and more people are coming, so we need to make the consultations 15 minutes long. Yeah? I'm not going back too far now. 20 years ago, 15-minute consultations. Then, no, people are not getting better. They keep coming back. Everyone with a chronic illness, everybody with a chronic illness is not being cured. So they keep coming back for more medicine, which is not curing them. It might be alleviating symptoms. It's not curing the problem. And so now there's a pressure. So many people to see who aren't getting better. They're not being cured. So that population is increasing. Therefore, the consultation time has to get shorter. Now, it is impolite for a doctor to tell a patient, your time is up, you must go. So a culture developed whereby when the doctor handed a prescription to a patient, they knew they must go. And can you see how it became convenient write the prescription, please go, because that's a polite way of saying, look, you must go, the next person's waiting.
An amazing thought that is.
I own the thought. It's my personal observation. Please understand, I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I just don't think I am.
You've obviously, Brian, you've been on an amazing journey. We haven't kind of delved into that yet, but would you like to share any of that with us, maybe? What
you can tell from my accent that I'm not from Sussex.
Yes, I did have that.
I'm from Pretoria in South Africa, and I went to what was then Pretoria University, was considered as one of the very elite medical schools in the world. Not only because of the standard of medicine, but also the standard of surgery. I've got a lot of time for surgery because it fixes things.
Yes.
If it's done properly,
yeah,
it really fixes the problem. You don't even have to worry about the cause there. Just fix the problem.
Easy to see, isn't it?
Doctors qualifying there are qualified in surgery as well as medicine. So you have 7 years where from your 4th year you're starting to assist surgeons in removing appendix and doing tonsillectomies and things like that. Because there are not a lot of consultants out there in the bush. If someone needs an appendix operation, you get on and do it. Yeah? And so the culture, the medical culture is different. But I was young and I was arrogant. And I think I was taught to be arrogant because I'm not arrogant by nature. You are the doctor and you tell the person what to do. You don't listen, you tell them. And nowadays, my initial consultations are 2 hours long. Why? Because I've learned a tough lesson. Listen, and ask appropriate questions, respecting that person as an individual, not trying to fit them into your medical model or box. You see, when you listen to someone, you're showing respect for their opinion about what they think of their body. The doctor cannot feel what the patient is feeling. He's got to ask. Yeah? And if you don't listen, you will have no idea of where the cause may have come from. So please understand that how I practiced medicine then is very different to how I practice it today. What happened to me was this. A lady came in with a child who had terrible eczema. And as any good doctor would do, I gave her every kind of steroid cream I could find. Just wasn't working. But the side effects of the steroid creams, because creams are absorbed into the blood, a lot of people don't know that. And you get side effects.
I think that's why women today are even a bit more conscious of what's in their makeup.
Yeah, they are. They don't want parabens in their makeup, for example.
No.
Anyhow, this woman went off to some quack, what I called a quack then, an alternative practitioner, who told her that her child was allergic to milk, cow's milk. And the child's eczema just cleared up. She had the grace to come to show the child to me. She paid, because in South Africa you pay to see the doctor. She paid for a consultation to show me a child without eczema. And in my arrogance, I said what my professors would have said. It was going to go away anyhow. And we all know, silly, that eczema is caused by stress, not by cow's milk. This poor lady looked at me and she said, "Okay, Dr. Brian, I will prove it to you." And can you believe she put her child back on cow's milk? And 3 or 4 days later, she brought me a child with oozing, weeping sores on the skin. I was devastated because firstly, I realized something that couldn't be true. Doctors can be wrong. Secondly, I realized I had harmed that child with my best intentions of helping the child.
That's a difficult thing to get over, isn't it?
It is, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so, for 13 years of private medical practice, I realized I am not curing one chronic illness. I'm giving people drugs that are causing them side effects, and sometimes I am forced to change the drug because it's very obvious that what I'm giving is causing harm. But never in my wildest dreams did I think that food could cause eczema. I am so indebted to that lady. So what happened was, for reasons of political violence, there's a lot of political violence, criminal violence
in South Africa.
Yeah. We had people in our house and they had guns, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and we just decided we are so lucky to be alive because the armed response people were actually on the corner. It was 3 in the morning and they were right there. When we triggered the alarm, they were there within seconds. It was just a miracle. So we were alive, and we decided to leave South Africa. And what did I find when I came to England? The University of Surrey in Guildford were offering a master's degree in nutritional medicine. I applied for the course. I was now working as a GP here. I had to do the British exams. I had to spend some time in a GP surgery, 6 months under supervision, having come from a foreign country. And then I became a partner in a local practice. And I saw this course, I applied for it, and that changed my life. Because not only did I learn that milk can cause eczema, I spent 5 years studying at the most amazing university you could ever attend. The enormity of the subject of nutritional medicine, functional medicine, how the body works, how to measure things that are vital, like mineral levels. It's so important to measure mineral levels in chronic illness. People who are suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome, how important it is to look at their mitochondrial functions. Whether magnesium is getting from the bloodstream into the cell and into the mitochondria. How do you measure that? That was revolutionary. So when I qualified with that master's degree, I resigned from the NHS. So what happened to me then is I wrote to the Secretary of State for Health, who at the time, if I may I mention his name?
Oh, why not?
His name was Frank Dobson. He was Labour.
Did he reply? I don't think it matters what political party they were.
And he at the time, I think he was thinking about becoming Mayor of London. I wrote him a letter and I said to him, "Dear Secretary of State for Health, I am the first graduate in the UK in nutritional medicine. I would like to be a part of an important new department that can look into chronic illness and try and help people without drugs. Could we talk about this further? And I did receive a reply, and it was from Frank Dobson personally. And I'd like you to think about his answer. He said, "Dear Dr. Brian, I don't know what you do, but the NHS does not need it." And I thought, what a stupid thing to say. Because you can only say whether you need something or not if you know what it is.
Yeah.
He said, "Well, I don't know what you do, but we don't need it." That was tough. Can you imagine? Because then I'd been a doctor for 20 years, and I didn't believe in the way medicine was being practiced. I didn't believe in the drug culture. I didn't believe in the doctor telling the patient what to do. I had changed my belief system into finding the cause of the problem and trying to fix the cause or get rid of it. And then the human body, which has an innate intelligence, will fix itself. And I thought that's a far more intelligent way of practicing medicine.
Well, I can't remember whether I mentioned this at our talk, but the Health and Social Care Act 2012 actually does have more emphasis on prevention. And not only is it hospitals and doctors, but also local authorities, which have a role in keeping their population healthy. And actually, when you dig a little bit deeper in there, they actually say, oh, there's money available for this. But whether it's still like Frank Dobson, and I guess it maybe is, they think, oh, it's only going to be people looking to see whether any kind of drugs.
If you don't mind me just interrupting you, it's just lip service and ticking boxes. In reality, I doubt that in the immediate future it's going to amount to anything. I think it's just lip service. They're paying lip service to what appears to be the right thing. You ask the average doctor, you ask the average GP, are they keen to work with complementary therapists, nutritionists, etc.? It depends on who's listening and who will hear the answer as to what they say. The truth is, they couldn't care less. I mean, they don't read my letters. They never reply. They never show an interest in what I've found. No. In their patient, they don't show an interest. You know, for example, you may find somebody with a candida overgrowth. They just say, well, that's a load of rubbish. We don't believe in that. The fact that the candida was the cause and the person got better from the treatment, they ignore. So you'll find I will only believe that because I told you already I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'll only believe that when I see it.
It is a great shame, isn't it? But I mean, I know I come from a farming background, so I've got no medical knowledge, but my journey, like your journey, has shown me various things, and I think it's given me the ability to look and maybe help some people think. But what it's actually doing is in the last couple of years in my life, people are coming towards us, and I think there are doctors out there. Maybe they're not quite strong enough yet, but I think they are just beginning to realise that maybe there's something to do with the food issue, which is the root cause of a lot of our problems. But maybe they're kind of afraid.
They are petrified because of things like what happened to me and many other doctors like me. They just remove you from the medical register because you don't think like the Brotherhood. Right. You don't think like the Brotherhood, you are. I have been accused by doctors of inventing an illness like candidiasis, for example, or wheat intolerance. They say you invent an illness and you charge a patient money for a consultation, and then you give them treatment that's completely unnecessary because the illness doesn't exist in the first place. Can you see the ignorance? It's astonishing. And
so
is
that all coming from
I have doctors talking to me who are so keenly interested. How did you get Mrs. So-and-so? That's so fascinating. But they dare not show their face here. They have an interest, but they dare not cross the line. You see, I had to make that decision. Here I was, a newly qualified in nutritional medicine consultant in a specialty that's not recognized. Okay, I come from a foreign country, so for 13 years of my working life, I lost all that pension. So 5 years in the NHS, thinking, what am I going to do? What kind of financial security am I giving up if I move out of this security? Then I thought, okay.
So you had some fear there as well.
Do you want to continue being a medical doctor in the NHS, writing prescriptions, and becoming more and more depressed? Or are you going to stand up for what you believe in and just trust God to see you through? And I said, I cannot, and I will not put myself through another 20 years of practicing the wrong medicine. I will not do that to myself. And took a risk.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, that must have isolated you
Absolutely.
a bit.
Yeah, I lost my pension. Yeah.
What about friends and fellow
income? People that come to see me have to pay out their pocket because my specialty is not recognized by medical council. You see? So we have a populace that is so used to not paying for any medical care. So why should I pay you? Why should I pay to come and see you? I can go to my GP.
But it is true that at the moment, many more people are going to complementary practitioners of all kinds. They're voting with their feet and they are paying because they know, like you just said, your consultation is 2 hours. You're going to talk to the person, you're going to listen to the person, and that will be healing as well. So whatever you prescribe afterwards, it's all part of that.
You know, even a lot of the healing process is what you just mentioned. People hear themselves talking.
Yeah.
And you know what? They talk the solution. They say, of course, I got so ill after I got glandular fever and the doctor thought I had chronic tonsillitis and he gave me antibiotic after. Oh, yeah. No wonder I've got candida overgrowth and chronic fatigue syndrome. They talk, they see. So when we do our testing, we are not trying to fit that person into a model. We are trying to find the model that fits the individual. And that's the difference.
One of the most strangest things I think that's happened as far as I'm concerned is people talk to me. They tell me all sorts of things. They might tell me as many things as they might tell you. And I say to them, look, I'm not a doctor. Don't tell me all this stuff. And it often doesn't make any difference. They'll just tell you things, and I say, I can just give you the odd bit of food advice and what I've learnt about the oil. So people are absolutely amazing, and when you engage with them, and if they have a problem, you need to get that out.
People are intelligent beings. They know better than any doctor what they are suffering and feeling.
And intrinsically, they actually know what's right.
They know.
Yeah.
And they respond to the respect that they deserve. Show them the respect of listening, because they tell you this. They're telling you the answer. They're telling it to you. You just have to look and listen.
Unbelievable. So you made that great leap. That was a huge leap to make, and you've obviously succeeded pretty well, I imagine. And how are you looking into the future? How do you see the future?
Oh, the future is always bright.
It's always bright. So we've got a big job to do. I'm kind of ploughing on doing my little
furrow. The future
furrow.
is always bright. No matter what people say about whether I am a good doctor or a bad doctor, a good teacher or a bad teacher, whatever they say, that's not what it's about. It's about the bigger picture. Getting people to recognize that they can become their own doctors by sorting out the causes, learning how to look after their health, and taking responsibility for their old age, their health in their old age.
I know we were talking, Brian, earlier on a little bit about energy, and actually energy and elephants and so on before we spoke to this. But you know, the people have been, well, I kind of often say we've been turned into slaves. We're all so focused on earning money to pay for that mortgage, which is intrinsically of no value. So we've got huge amounts of stresses in our life. You know, I feel our lives have been stolen from us, so we haven't got time to have our family or talk to our children or do the things that we need to do, like we would have done as Stone Age man, like leaning on the gate and seeing what's happening. So lots of things have been stolen from us, and that has an effect on us. And it's very hard for people, isn't it, if they're getting a little bit obese or they're getting other problems. How can what key is there? Is there a kind of key we can say, look, have a think about this change and you can improve your life? Those are the issues that are really kind of difficult as well, aren't they? Those emotional and you know, when you wake up in the morning and, you know, are you happy to see the day? You know, how do we deal with any of those? Have we got any?
Oh, it's
keys
just
for those?
such a. I don't think you realise that question will take us days.
Oh my God!
So what we'll
That's
do
a whole
is
new book.
I'll give you an example.
Right, that sounds.
You wake up in the morning, you feel depressed and you feel like rubbish. You struggle to get out of bed. The day improves and then you're fine. Surely there's a cause. What I've found, and my findings have been copied, in other words, they were also found by a magazine called Food Matters, that a wheat intolerance causes early morning depression. Now, you won't find that in any medical textbook. So, to answer your question in that way, what do I do? How to find a path? I listen and I ask the appropriate questions. If it becomes apparent that this particular individual is very tired and chronically tired, even to the point where they can't get out of bed or they can no longer get to work, we have to find the cause, because conventional medicine says, I'm terribly sorry, you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, you have to pace yourself, therefore you can no longer work, you become a liability to the taxpayer, we can't do anything more for you. When you become depressed because you can't cope with that thought, you are offered an antidepressant. And all the blood tests they do come back normal. Now I ask you, and this is a serious question, when a chronically ill, significantly ill person has blood tests that all come back normal, does that mean there's nothing wrong with that person, that it's all in their mind?
Well,
I'm asking this because this is how people are treated.
yeah.
This is what our I'll tell you what the
And
doctor
mind
says.
is a big thing, isn't it?
This is
we
what
don't
the-
much understand that, I don't think.
Yeah,
Yet.
this is what the doctor says. Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, your tests have all come back completely normal. Would you like an antidepressant? The doctor is assuming that the normal test results means nothing wrong with the patient, whereas in fact he's faced with the reality of someone who's ill, but still brushes that under the carpet. What it actually means is the doctor hasn't done the right test. And that's where nutritional medicine is wonderful, because we sit and think, right, what are the possible causes? Take chronic fatigue syndrome. What are the possible reasons why this person is so unwell? And we've excluded the routine tests. We know they're not iron deficient. Yeah? We know they're not diabetics because of the routine tests that came back normal. Right. So we're left with a few questions. Is their thyroid normal? We can talk about that more if you like, because the NHS doesn't test the thyroid hormones. They test another hormone. Are your adrenals, your adrenal glands that give you chronic stress hormones, that give you strength, energy, drive and stamina, are they normal? Because they haven't been tested. Are your mineral levels normal? Because I promise you, they have not been tested. And I'm not talking about calcium here. And are your mitochondria working properly? And that's where your body actually manufactures energy. Are they functioning normally? And we, in nutritional medicine and functional medicine, we can assess all of those, because I can guarantee you, a person with chronic fatigue syndrome with all the tests from the GP normal will have a problem in one of those 4 areas.
Those mitochondria are beautiful, aren't they? When you look at
They're
them.
lovely. They're lovely.
So we need to look after them.
We really need to look after mitochondria. Mitochondria are fascinating things in terms of, if you believe in evolution, you will come to realize that mitochondria are not part of the human cell. They were gobbled up by a cell and lived inside that cell in symbiosis with that cell. They were actually a bacteria. Yeah?
So they're the reason we're us.
And then the cell and the bacteria living inside the cell work together for the good of both. So evolutionists think that mitochondria, that's why mitochondria have their own DNA. So in our human cell, we've got our own DNA in the nucleus of the cell, in the chromosomes, and then out there in the cytoplasm of the cell, we've got mitochondria with their own DNA. Did you know that? Fascinating. But if you're not an evolutionist, you accept that the mitochondria is an integral part of the human cell. And if you look at the membrane of the mitochondria carefully, you'll see that it's a double membrane, identical to the double membrane of the human cell. And that's why I personally don't believe that mitochondria originated from bacteria. I believe they're part and parcel of the human cell as it was created. Now, if you want to get some biochemical, a nutrient from the bloodstream into the cell, it's got to get through 2 layers of the membrane. Now it finds itself eventually inside the cytoplasm of the cell. But now this is a nutrient needed inside the mitochondria to make energy. Wow! Now it's got to get through another double membrane. So can you see, if it's a nutrient like magnesium that's vital for the production of energy inside the mitochondria, how important it is to measure what are the blood levels of magnesium, what are the intracellular, that means inside the cell, levels, and what are the levels inside the mitochondria. And we have learned how Mother Nature transports magnesium and other nutrients across that double membrane. And so if we see a chronic fatigue patient, and almost 100% of them, I can just tell you, have normal magnesium levels in the blood and significantly low levels inside the cell, we know how to get the magnesium into the cell.
So it's a transference problem.
And so you see, wow! And we can also do something else that's interesting, that modern medicine does not do. We can measure how much energy a person is producing. Say, for example, you have an iron level. You say, okay, my iron level is 10 and the normal range is from 8 to 12, as an example. Yeah? Here we can measure how much energy you're producing and compare that to normal, the normal reference range. Now, the most common presenting symptom in any doctor's office: Doctor, I'm so tired.
All the time, isn't it?
T-A-T-T.
T-A-T-T.
Tired all the time.
Tired all the time.
It's the most common presenting symptom, and it's never measured. They don't measure how much energy you're making. But I do. Because I'm interested to know. Because some people can manufacture normal quantities of energy, they can't utilize it, and other people just can't manufacture sufficient energy. Now, the energy molecule called adenosine triphosphate, which we abbreviate to ATP, is easily measured. Why aren't doctors measuring it? Because
they don't like the
answers. The treatment's already there. The treatment is, sorry, we can't do any more for you. You have to just go and rest. Now, do you think it's fair? Well, of course you don't think it's fair. But I mean, do you think it's right that in this day and age, modern medicine can get away with that? Where they can say to a person, sorry, the rest of your life, the rest of your working life is over because we can't help you. Or, okay, I know someone who can help you. I'm referring you to Dr. So-and-so, he's in the NHS, he will do the test free of charge and he will get you back to work. That's not happening.
It's not happening, but that's what's got to happen, isn't it?
And
the other day they were saying, let's put another £30 billion into the health service.
Oh, excuse me? May I ask you a question now?
Go on.
We are putting so much money into the NHS. My question is, we are putting in so much more than we expected to, ever.
Of course.
Is the population healthier? And I'm talking about, is the population even 1% healthier?
Well, I think it's quite reasonable to see that now they tell us 1 in 4 people are going to be touched by cancer. My sister died with cancer. So, they tell us, we're making great strides and we're improving the treatment and curing more people, but more and more people are getting them. So they're not really even getting to the root of that problem. What was it? Sir Richard Dole was saying it's the food, and he said that a long time ago.
Yeah, but why doesn't anyone listen to him?
Well,
and this is why people like you are so important. You must get the message out. We are spending a fortune on an NHS that we cannot afford, and the people are no healthier. Now, if you were an investment man, would you invest in that system? I'm putting money into the NHS so that the people can be healthier.
That's what we want.
That's what we want. But is it what we're getting? And the answer is a very big fat no. We are not getting that.
It is.
So our politicians need to sit up, wake up and listen.
They do. Do you think that would get them elected again? How what would the people think?
Well, this interests me tremendously because, I'm a medical doctor, I'm not a politician. But my observation is this. Politicians will change their core policies to suit what the public think.
So we've got to change people one at a time
to
think differently.
And I'll tell you when I first noticed this. In South Africa we had an apartheid government and we had Nelson Mandela's group, opposition.
He said we've got to come together.
Now listen to what happened. We had a group of 10 people called the cabinet of the apartheid system. It was their core belief that apartheid was right. They could prove it in any way you wanted. They would even, I won't go there, but they would even quote from certain scriptures why apartheid was correct. It was a core belief. Now, Nelson Mandela gets into power. What did those 10 people do? They crossed the floor to join Nelson Mandela's party because they couldn't cope without having power. So some politicians are power mongers. Others will easily change their core beliefs to suit themselves and their position.
Did those 10 people change their core belief?
They just said, apartheid was wrong. We believe in the new system. We're joining the new system.
But if you scratch the surface, was the old politician just under there?
Please, how can you have a vehemently, and I mean vehemently, aggressively apartheid type of character change his core beliefs? Those are either his core beliefs or they are not. And coming to England has been interesting because I find all the major parties are more or less
you kind of changed
similar.
Your core belief, didn't you?
I did.
You did.
Oh, you got me there.
So it is possible.
It is possible. But what we need is, you remember that woman that put her child through going back to eczema to prove to me, look at what it changed in me.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for that arrow that strikes at the heart, because nothing else will change in politics.
I like that. I often say to people, what is this key? But that's brilliant, the arrow that strikes at the heart.
That's the medicine I practice. We practice targeted nutrition. Identify your target, and that means you don't have to shoot in any other direction. You just shoot the target.
Right.
Targeted nutrition. And you know that's your target because you've proved it with your various tests.
Yeah. But we've got to do, in general terms, there's just, I often say to people, you remember when Clinton was fighting the election, he had the notice on the wall that said it's the economy stupid, and I think we all need the notice, it's the food stupid. But people are kind of addicted to that food, aren't they now? And so we've got a big journey to try and get them to say, look, you need to change this food system so that we can be well. And wouldn't it be great if you can run around like your Stone Age man and do things?
Well, it's rather convenient, isn't it, creating an addiction in people to food, because people are addicted to
so it's enslavement, another
carbs and sugars, addicted. It's a culture in medicine we call it, only in medicine, but in psychology we call it blame the victim. And so big business just said, well, look, the people want that food, so we're just supplying what they're asking for.
Yeah, that's
but you made them that way in the first place.
Yeah, they know we're eating junk food because they want to ban junk food adverts for children.
Yes.
So is there a question? There's no question, is there? They know it's there, so it needs to be banned.
Yeah. People are often used as pawns. If you look at artificial colours, also known as azo dyes, are a byproduct of the manufacture of tar for the roads.
It's all asphalt now, isn't it?
So they said, what are we going to do with all these different colours? Oh, I know, let's give it to people. Let's put it in food and sweets and things. And no wonder, it didn't take very long before a lot of them were banned. But to this day, we have artificial colours that haven't been banned. But we know they cause and aggravate illnesses such as hyperactivity in children.
Mm.
And there's so much proof. I did my dissertation on the role of nutrition in ADHD, both in the cause of ADHD, for example, artificial additives, and in the treatment, as in giving omega-3. Yeah. In my dissertation, I had about 250 really good articles because the University of Surrey would not allow you to use articles that were not up to scratch. I had over 250 references of why these additives cause problems and how good nutrition, good food, can cure problems. And still you get these people who should know better, professors of pediatrics, saying there is no evidence to suggest that ADHD is caused by additives. I mean, please.
So let's give them more rhetoric.
What they are actually saying is, I refuse to accept that there is evidence. I brush the evidence under the carpet because it doesn't suit me. Now, they shouldn't be professors of pediatrics.
No, well, obviously these people we mentioned earlier on were people big enough of mind to say things.
Yeah, but you mentioned doctors who would like to cross the line but are too scared to. I don't blame them.
Well, no, I don't think we can. It's very difficult. We've got to
I don't blame them. They're not all as brave and idiotic as I.
No, so we've got to all be like Nelson Mandela and try and encompass everybody within there, but maybe try and change them by example.
What I found is you cannot force somebody to believe anything.
No.
You cannot make someone believe anything.
No.
What you can do is find out what drives them, what is the emotion inside them making stupid statements. Why are they doing that? Because they know it's silly, but why are they doing it? And to try and work with that person and try and change, get them to argue for change.
You know that thing that somewhere in the world somebody will invent something and simultaneously half a world away somebody else invents the same thing. They haven't communicated, they don't know each other. Isn't that amazing? So somewhere along the line, do you think that we can all be thinking about, we've got to change and do this, and maybe a few other people will get the same idea and this will come together and people will realise it's the food, stupid? Or maybe I haven't explained that very well, but do you get the general drift?
My fear, I have very definite fears here. You can correct me because you're a farmer. But I believe that there are farmers, many farmers, who have no other way out but to do as they are told because of financial constraints.
Oh, I'm sure that's completely true. And there's no people working on the land in this country now. So farmers are isolated and de-skilled. They don't know where their product goes, but what they should be doing is producing food, and they're producing commodities. And I'd like to kind of change that. But, they've got no doubt mortgages and all that sort of other things, so they're sucked in.
They get sucked in.
And it's difficult to change.
And then these genetically modified people promoting genetically modified grains and things, they say, look, if you don't grow and produce our product, we're going to choke you to death.
The Terminator gene, that is, so that people, anybody if this can't.
That's my
continue
fear.
To grow the seeds.
My fear is that big business is far more powerful than any government.
Yeah. Oh, there's no
Sorry
doubt
to
about
tell
that.
you. Oh, you know that. Great.
I think I know that. Yes.
Big business is more powerful than than government. So,
and that's why government won't do anything.
I fear. That's why I fear. I fear for the future.
I always jokingly say to people, we need a new political party.
I couldn't agree more.
But I can't find a treasurer for my new political party. But maybe one day, because we've actually got to change. Whichever party is in power, they might move 0.5% from a middle line, and in some areas, we do actually need to move quite a few percentage places. I mean, we don't need to be communistic or that. We just have to, first of all, think of people. What's good for people.
It makes me think of if we could be a little practical in our thinking. Makes me think of the definition of an optimist and a pessimist. A pessimist is an optimist with experience. Now that's a negative statement. Now when it comes to the role of big business and whichever government's in power, I'm afraid I'm a pessimist, because how can government change big business? It's too difficult for them. I think we have all become enslaved in a financial system that is spiraling out of control.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Why is it that in the West we work 40 years to pay for a home that in Africa you pay for in 3 months, because all the friends and neighbors come and help you build your house? The cost of bricks is low because there are no mortgages.
Well, it's manipulated. The price of houses is manipulated.
So this is the whole thing. It's the banks.
Well, yes. God, we can't go into that one right now. But
I don't
there's
think
a whole
we can.
Another program.
But we are enslaved.
We are enslaved
in a financial system that's spiraling out of control.
And if we were healthier and fitter, we'd sit around and foment rebellion.
It won't help us holding up a placard say the end is nigh.
No.
It helps us to change people's hearts.
Yes, get that arrow into the heart with the right information.
We need to target what will make people change.
Yeah.
And that, I'm pleased to tell you, is your job.
It's a hell of a big job. But we're doing it a little bit, I think, and by inviting people to the farm and talking to people, it is spreading the word, and it's very satisfying. Linseed has changed my life from that point of view. I mean, who could have imagined a few years ago when I was going up and down the field in the tractor with nothing to think about, too much to think about. It's a bad thing to have to do, and here I am talking to you, or I'm broadcasting on YouTube. That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? We've got the world there we can talk to. All we've got to do is get more people to listen to us.
Well, I am really so pleased that you came to talk to me today, because imagine what goes on in my head. I have all these thoughts, and
we've got some of them out.
I've got no colleague to share them with. I am so isolated. It scares me. I can see what's happening, and I feel powerless to do anything about it.
Well, it's amazing, Brian, that you've shared that thought with us, and it's been inspirational to speak to you about these things, and I hope that a few more people will hear us and listen to us and maybe start to think for themselves that here is another route. But can people get in touch with you? Presumably you'd like people to talk to you.
Certainly, yeah. Yes, people can get in touch with me. I'm at Eagle Clinic, so my website is eagleclinic.com. We are in Horsham, and we
You've got
see
a telephone
people.
Number as well? Do you like people to come on the telephone?
Our telephone number is 01403 258 351.
Brilliant. Well, I think we probably ought to wrap it up there, Brian, but I'm sure that maybe in future we could have another little chat sometime.
I
or
would
maybe
be
you'd
delighted.
like to come to the farm again sometime. We keep on having our practitioner days, but It's, as I say, been really brilliant, and thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you,
Durwin.
Well, everybody, I think we must say a really amazing thank you to Brian for sharing his thoughts and innermost feelings and some of the problems facing us today if we're interested in having a healthier nation. He clearly identified for us how we got into the situation we are now. Really, I think also a route out of it. So what we really have to do is unburden the National Health Service with the role that it's currently playing, which is curing so much, or attempting to cure, or not curing so much food-related illness, and to get back to the role that it should be playing. As Brian identified, surgeons are absolutely miraculous people and can do amazing things. There are plenty of those things for them to do, and there's plenty more research into all sorts of problems that we have, and I'm sure the health service is the number one way of treating, investigating, and dealing with a lot of those problems. But clearly, when it comes to food-related disease, there is quite a lot lacking. I think one of the most interesting things was the testing of people. Testing needs to go in quite deeply. It needs to be testing the right things. That clearly came through in the interview. So we've got a lot to do, haven't we? We must be asking for better testing and deeper testing and real understanding of people who have these diseases or problems. They do have them, and they need to be treated with dignity and respect and able to have time with their doctor. And as you heard, that's what Brian is able to give, time and understanding. That is going to help get to the root cause of these problems. And hopefully, when people have that understanding and time, they will be prepared to change and see results of the change that they make. So clearly, Brian has made a huge change at what could have been a huge personal cost. Nonetheless, he's done it. So all of you can make some change to make your health better. And first and foremost, it means shopping in a different way and consuming food in a different way. But of course, for you to do that, you need to have understanding of what food is healthier for you and what food isn't healthy. You will have seen in some of my earlier broadcasts, I did go into some of those details, and in later broadcasts we will dig deeper into some of these food issues and what you might do to help yourself make change. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Brian. That's absolutely marvellous. That's all today, folks. But next week, I think I have got an amazing show lined up. So look forward to seeing you next week. Bye. 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 You next week.